Girl, you make me go so loco, loco, make me go crazy. We would make a beautiful baby.
Mic check, mic check, mic check. 1, 2. Greetings, all my beautiful brads. How are you guys doing? How's life? How's work? How's school? Tell me all about it. I'm really glad to be here with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Should I do a life recap? Sometimes I'll be feeling like not much goes on my day to day, but I've been putting my head towards passion projects. Some I can talk about, some I can't. I have this YouTube series I've been working on called the Palanasi Hotel. It is ready. It's one of those projects that has been a long time coming. It will be out soon. I'll have it tied under my filmmaking domain, Joel Bradley Production Studios. On that channel, if you care to subscribe, I hope this inspires you to go reach out for your dreams and make it happen. On this podcast, I hope we generate and foster an uplifting environment for any man out there seeking belonging and understanding. We got you. We understand you. Remember, you always got us. Today, I will be narrating the unfolding of my 4-year sentence. Disclaimer: I have no criminal record, but high school felt like jail. And let me tell you why. Be sure to follow this podcast on Spotify. You can give it a rating. Plus, it is also available on my YouTube channel. This is Bradley. Without further ado,
Knock on wood, is you trying to date me? Is it yes? Is it no?
guys, so the verdict for my case came out around December 2018, and I was assigned a place to go around January 2019, but I did not really like where I was going to, and much of me spent time thinking about how far I could go, how far from home it could be, because much of me wanted to experience a new environment, like a fresh start or something, in a new county. Considering the place I landed on, I was like, it's only a 45-minute drive, so this doesn't count. I was told of how I could always transfer. Nothing came out of that, really. But I'm glad for that in hindsight. I made a lot of memories. I met a lot of friends. I grew so much as a person. Speaking of growth, I know I have mentioned this before, how transitioning from 2018 to 2019 was hard on me, because this was when I realized most of the friendships I had weren't. Picture them falling apart. Combine that with having to adapt to a new external structure when my own internal structure was crumbling apart. These were going to be some tough times ahead. First few months, we are on honeymoon, still sleeping in a hall, but we are on honeymoon. I met only one person that I knew from my past life, and he kind of became my bunkmate for a short while till we got actual dorms. We started being sectioned off into different streams, different classes. I was just navigating the school, learning its dynamics. When I got to fully know who my classmates were, I made friends with 4 to 5 people. Those were Lennox, Elvis, Victor, and Felix. Those were the ones I was really close with. I ended up bunking with Victor for quite a while, so we kind of did a lot together, just normal stuff, working out, washing clothes, going to the fields to chill, just in general. For quite some time, we used to learn in a lab, so most of us would sit at the back before we actually came to get classes, like an actual classroom. I was having to adjust to these people who came from different backgrounds, from all sorts of parts of this country. I remember listening to their stories and seeing how they had lived such a full life and I had nothing. I had to go to lengths of making up fantasies of myself just to appear cool, more so worthy to be in that conversation. I knew I never had those adventures in my life when I was a kid. I never got out the house, so I had to make an image for myself and keep it up, which was hard. Every time we used to open, we would spend time almost like the first days catching up with each other on each other's lives, and people were living. I mean, those my friends, they were living. Their lives were on fleek. My friends were living. It used to weigh down on me because I had nothing. At first, this was just piling on to the underlying issues I had beneath the surface. Issues that I never addressed in school. I was never a joker. I was never an indisciplined student. But in the words of my physics teacher, I was academically indisciplined. My name wouldn't come up in cases, but it slowly moved down that class register and even moved further down that form register. And I'm not afraid to admit that my mind wasn't really there. I used to build fantasies to help me escape my own reality, escape my own thoughts. I had no idea how to deal with them, how to transmute this pain I had carrying on for ages. Every time I went back home, it became harder and harder to explain it. Why aren't you performing? I was trying to escape. I don't know how. Everyone was just okay around me, and feeling left out, I just kept to myself. No wonder I used to go for self walks by myself just to keep my peace. And I found it sometimes. At least I hadn't yet reached that point where I wanted to take my own life. All I had was music, the music I made with my friends. Like siku zenta were the only days keeping me sane through this sentence. I can't begin expressing this. Like, it wasn't even about the movies we saw, but that part where they played music was just everything. I was even up to be the entertainment captain. My books just couldn't match. I loved how I would sit and just go into a whole new dimension in that song, rhyming bar for bar, like I was in a stage performing or something. Everyone was just looking at you like, what's wrong with him? But to me, it didn't matter because between those 808s and those melodies, the world disappeared. My depression was no more, it did not exist. I was free. I was finally free. It crushed me when it was all over and I'd have to go back to experiencing school. I must say, my relationship with God was rocked. I had never not found solace in Him like the way I did. When Corona hit, that was a much needed break. A break that broke me and rebuilt me anew. And maybe one day I would get into that, probably in an episode, who knows. The comeback was real emotionally. Academically, not so much, because this is when I had started to heal. The healing process had begun. I was still in my fantasies most of the time, but those fantasies brought forth a whole album called Escapism, which I wrote at a time where I felt I was all by myself musically, because now all those people you made music with sobered up and started actually thinking about their future. It's just you and only you who thought about you as very differently, and that's just fine. I'm glad I was healing, because healing is not easy. It's not easy to face up to your friend and admit to them that you lied to them about your identity from the beginning. It's not easy having to sit for an exam only to walk out halfway because you were crying. It's not easy to sit at the back of a corner in a classroom, head down, crying throughout a whole prep time. That's not easy. Healing is not easy, but it's needed. When I struggled to find the tools on how I would deal with trauma, or what even trauma was and what even trauma is, I made a promise to myself that no other human being in my position would have to struggle, whether from Africa or not, whether a man or woman. I will be there to provide those tools for you, and you can count on that. I am there to provide those tools that the younger me needed at that time, and he could not necessarily find that, around his environment. I'm happy I started the journey. I realized I wasn't crazy for having big dreams that couldn't be necessarily tied to a high school certificate. I started loving myself from within. High school was fun though. I never was a sporty kid all my life. I just sat by and watched on the sidelines. But the furthest I actually got to a co-curricular activity was debate. I was in the debate club. At least I can say that is what made me get out of school at least each and every single year. And I commend that I was actually good at it. I also sang much to my history in primary school. I did lots of performances and pieces during school assemblies and functions outside of school. This was the first time that I really got into into poetry, all thanks to Felix. He inspired me to really get into it. It was not only Felix, I mean, we even had a whole like school band and stuff going on, and with them I also worked with a drummer slash guitarist slash producer. I mean, he was the first person who came through for me at a point where I felt like I was really low in terms of creativity, in terms of just lack of appreciation when it comes to music. And he was just like, yo, we should do something. And I don't know if y'all know this or not, but he was actually the first person I ever collaborated with musically. And he was the first person to actually produce my first ever single, and that is Define You. And he produced it. He produced the beat for me, and forever my thanks goes on to him. As time wound down and my sentence was coming to an end, the more I found peace in my passions and creations. This isolation set the tone for the life after. It set me on that path, and I pushed and continued. I'm glad that I am building. I was just at the wind down during the exam period, made a vow to myself that I would not cry, and I really held on. Then 23rd December came and I was released. Coming out of high school, I have learned much about myself. I learned how to let go of specific outcomes from relationships. I also learned to always make good on all opportunities I got out of this life. I really embody that till this day. And yeah, that was my sentence. Really brief overview.
Girl, you make me go so loco, make me go crazy. We would make a beautiful baby. Knock on wood, is you trying to date me? Is it yes, is it no?